Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour on Saga 960. I want to introduce you to Ron Duquette, who is the founder and chair of an organization called Legends Row. And if you've been to Mississauga City Hall, you would have seen Legends Row there. And it's really quite, it's sort of our walk of fame. It's really quite an impressive collection of tributes to important people in Mississauga's history. And so they've got this year's induction coming up, and I thought it would be good to check in with Ron Duquette to find out a little bit about Legends Row, about Ron Duquette, and most importantly, frankly, about who this year's inductees are, the 50th anniversary of the city of Mississauga. Ron Duquette, welcome to the show.
Happy to join you, Brian.
So tell me, when is the induction this year for Legends Row?
Yeah, it's going to be on August the 25th, which is Sunday, August 25th at 2 in the afternoon. And for the first time, we're holding it in Hammerson Hall at the Living Arts Center, which is the 1,300-seat theater. We're expecting a lot of people, we hope. Yeah, it's going to be our biggest event since we started Legends Row 11 years ago.
And it's a little bit special, you say, because it's this year is the 50th anniversary of the founding of the city of Mississauga. Is that correct?
That's correct. And what we thought we'd do this year is reach out to several people who were either born here or lived here for a significant amount of their lives and went abroad and did some pretty amazing things. And we thought it'd be nice to bring them back and to recognize them. And that's what we're doing. So it should be a lot of fun.
How old is Legends Row and how did it come about?
Legends Row, I started it actually in 2012, and it really was kind of a freaky thing. My wife and I were in Washington on a vacation, and we were walking down this boulevard just off the White House, and there were these beautiful bronze plaques in the sidewalk, and I didn't recognize any of the inductees, but they were really, really well done. And on the way home, I thought, gee, we're a big city. We got to do something here in Mississauga. So I put a plan together and contacted a bunch of my friends and colleagues in the city and put the proposal to them, and they all liked it. We formed a small group. Well, actually, it was a group of about 15 of us, and went to City Hall and said, this is what we want to do. Hazel loved it, and council loved it, and we were on our way. So we just had to raise the money. That's all. They gave us the space. We had to raise the money.
Where is the space? Where is Legends Row?
It's if anyone's familiar with Celebration Square, there's a splash pad and an ice rink on the top portion of Celebration Square, and it's just to the west of that. It's a beautiful covered area, which is nice because it's protected from the weather. It's outdoors, but protected from the weather. And we have, gosh, I think we're close to 60 inductees now over the course of that time. But I didn't want to do the traditional plaque in the sidewalk kind of thing. I thought we'd do something different. So we came up with these pylons. We call them totems, and they're about 6 feet tall. And that allows, and they're four-sided. So that allows us to put an awful lot of information and a couple of photographs of each of the inductees on their plaque. And so people can stroll down Legends Row and not only read about what these people have done throughout their lives and what they've contributed to Mississauga, but we've also got several plaques that highlight the small communities that made up the city of Mississauga way back when, the Timothy Streets and the Warren Clarksons and people like that who really started these small villages that eventually became the city of Mississauga. So there's a lot of history there. And our thinking was that the condo buildings that surround the civic center, if you will, are largely made up of people who have come to Canada and are starting their lives or their careers here. You know, they're living in apartments. And Celebration Square is really kind of their backyard, if you will. If you go there on any weekend in the summer, it's just filled with families having picnics and kids playing soccer and kids running in their splash pad and having a great time. So we thought this would be an opportunity for them to stroll through and read about Moulton and Streetsville, and how these communities started. So that's the second portion, if you will, of what Mrs. Legends Row is all about.
Ron, why do you think it's important to recognize important contributors to Mississauga in the past?
Well, we don't all live forever, and some people pass on, and for those in the future to read about these people, I think is important. But it's also I think important to try and impress young people that there are great things you can do in your lives, and if they read and hear about these people and what they've done, what they've accomplished, it might encourage them to think bigger, work harder to achieve things themselves. So it's multi-purpose, really.
And do you think it actually helps them to understand about Timothy Street and the different villages and the founders of the different villages? Is that at all relevant?
Well, I don't know. I suppose some of us are into history. I know I am, and some aren't. But there's, as I say, there's two parts to the puzzle here. If you're not interested in the history, fine. But if you're interested in who the builders and the sports and the athletes and the people who've done incredible things have done, then there's something for you. If not, go join the splash pad.
And why is it important for you to be part of this process?
I've always had a great interest in history. I came to Mississauga in 1969, so I've really watched this city grow. In fact, when I first came here, I worked for Bruce McLaughlin, who was the gentleman who developed and was creating the downtown core of the Mississauga, and Square One, which started it all. And so I've always had a great interest in history, and I've watched the important people who've helped make this city great do what they do, and I just felt that this was something we had to do. Lots of cities, even small communities, have walks of fame or places where they recognize their people, and I just felt that Mississauga needed one as well.
What did you do for Bruce McLaughlin?
I was his director of corporate communications, and so I did all the marketing and public relations. I named Square One, as a matter of fact, and it was a great period of my life. I worked for Bruce for 7 years, and eventually left him to start my own marketing business, and rented space in his building, and he became my first client. So I carried on doing the marketing for Square One in the early days, and that sort of thing. But it was really interesting because I'd never been to Square One. I worked for a very large ad agency in Toronto, and I guess the only time I'd been here is driving through on my way to Buffalo or the States, but I never stopped in Mississauga. And so I came out. A friend of mine had mentioned to me that Bruce was looking for someone to do this work, and I thought, well, I might as well check it out. And I spent a couple of hours with Bruce, and I went back to Toronto and quit my job, and I just had to be a part of his story. So here
Well, it
we are.
sounds like you were an important part of the story, and it's an important part of your own story.
I think so, and as I said earlier, I've been very, very fortunate to watch the growth of this city and watch the downtown be created. I'm not so sure that it's the way I would have wanted it. I would have liked to have seen a few other components beyond what's happened, but nonetheless, it was the start of a building of a city. I think at that point, we were 220,000 people. We were really a small community. And to be able to watch that development has been really a big part of my life. I've enjoyed it.
We're chatting with Ron Duquette tonight. He is the founder and chair of an organization called Legends Row. Later in August, they're having an induction ceremony where they're going to induct numerous different new people into Legends Row. We're going to take a break for some messages, and when we come back, I'm going to ask Ron to tell us a little bit about each one of the inductees and why they are deserving of this honor, and get a sense of what Legends Row is all about and this year's inductees. Stay with us, everyone. Back in 2 minutes. Welcome back, everyone, to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour on Saga 960. My guest tonight is Ron Duquette. He is the founder and chair of an organization called Legends Row, Mississauga Legends Row. And on Sunday, August the 25th, he's got an induction ceremony for all of the inductees in this year's Legend Row. We've just been chatting about what Legends Row is. And I thought it would be really helpful if, Ron, you took us through some of the inductees and told us a little bit about who they are and why they deserve to be inducted into Legends Row. Tell us a little bit about some of this year's inductees, please.
Well, I'd be happy. Why don't we start on the right? You could see Pat Bullard. Some people might know the Bullard name. He grew up here in Mississauga, went to Arundel High School, and he was kind of the class clown. And it was, I guess, clearly evident he was going to go into comedy somewhere down the line, and that's exactly what happened. He started as a comedian doing stand-up at Yuck Yucks and some of the comedy clubs around the area. He then moved to New York. He had his own television show in New York, the Pat Bullard Show, and then eventually he headed down to Los Angeles and hosted a variety of very popular reality-based television shows of the day. Today, he is the executive director of Reba McEntire's new sitcom, Happy's Place, it's called. And he's had a very extensive career in Hollywood and continuing to perform stand-up and lives in Los Angeles. So we're happy that he's coming back to Mississauga, and we're going to induct him.
Fantastic.
Did you want to say anything about him, Brian?
No, go ahead.
Did you? Okay. The next to him, a gentleman by the name of John Roberts. Folks as old as I am probably remember him as J.D. Roberts back in the 80s with the New Music and Much Music with Jeannie Becker. And he had a pretty extensive career in Canada, with those television shows, but eventually ended up in the U.S., and worked for CBS for 14 years. He was the chief White House correspondent at that time. And currently, John serves as the co-anchor of America Reports on Fox News, the Fox News channel in Washington. He's probably one of the most respected journalists in the United States. And again, we're just so thrilled that John and his family, his entire family, are coming up for this induction ceremony. Next, I believe we have Simu Liu. Or no, let's talk about Jason Spezza. And Brian, I think you'd know Jason Spezza, being involved in the Ottawa Senators. He was, I believe, the #1 draft pick of the day for the Senators when they selected him. Had a long career. I think it was 11 or 12 years with Ottawa. Was one of their top scorers, eventually became captain of the team, and then was traded to Dallas, I think, for 2 seasons, and then came to Toronto to wind up his career as a Maple Leaf. And right now he is Jason is the executive or assistant to general manager, I believe, of the Pittsburgh Penguins, trying to rebuild that team. So Jason has a long history in this city with his career. So we're thrilled at that. And maybe you could talk about Jason. You probably knew him well when you were.
I didn't know him well, but I certainly knew him. So I was involved in the Mississauga Ice Dogs, and that became the Mississauga Steelheads. When it was the Ice Dogs, it was owned by Eugene Melnick, who I worked for on and off for 24 years. And Jason was the star of that team. And then when he was drafted and brought to Ottawa, he had some good seasons and some challenging seasons. And I remember one time where he was losing a little bit of his confidence and a little bit of his edge. And interestingly enough, Eugene Melnick flew Hazel McCallion, the mayor of Mississauga at the time, up to Ottawa to come into the dressing room and give Jason a pep talk about how he had to, find his confidence back. And I was there at the time, and it was kind of an interesting story that it was Hazel that Eugene relied on to come and tell the guy to, get his confidence back.
And that turned it around for him?
It did for a while, yeah. No, Jason, was a great player, and I think I had the pleasure, as you may have, of seeing him coming back and playing in Toronto, and he had some really good seasons in Toronto, and he was at the time the elder statesperson in the dressing room and the leader on the team, even though he wasn't clearly the best player because of his age, but he I think was the spirit of the Maple Leafs for the time period that he was back in Toronto, and it was always his dream to play for the
Yeah.
Toronto Maple Leafs, given that he grew up in Mississauga.
Well, that's true, and I talked to him just recently, and he's really enjoying his role in Pittsburgh. I think he's responsible for the junior systems and all the teams that are feeding the big team, as we all know, is how that works in hockey. And he's a delightful young man. So we're thrilled that he's coming back. Next to Jason is Amanda Cleghorn, and I can't tell you enough about this young lady. She's a dancer. Started off here in Mississauga. I believe she danced with your daughter, if that's not
She didn't
if that.
dance with my daughter, but on the same company, the Canadian Dance Company. And so you got to make sure that you invite Alan Lupien and people from the Canadian Dance Company to your induction ceremony because she was the star of the Canadian Dance Company at the time, and went on to fame right after that. My daughter would have been, several years younger than her and dancing in the same on the same stage and at the same performances, but never at the same in the same group. But Amanda
Okay,
Cleghorn was one of the stars, if not the star. And I actually, Ron, had the honor of nominating her for a Marty, which she won. I can't remember when, but it would have been back, 5, 7 years ago.
that's
And
right.
she flew in from LA, I think it was, to receive the Marty, and she was really quite excited. I actually did a show with her on my radio show about her experience dancing, and she is an amazing talent.
Yeah, she is. She toured in 2013-14. She toured for 2 years with Taylor Swift on her Red tour, and they became very, very close friends. And she has been well. She won. So you think you can dance Canada season 3? She was the top female dancer in Canada on that show. She won the top American dance competition in the U.S. And the work she's done in Hollywood and Los Angeles, she's been on every award show, the Oscars, the Billboard Awards, you name it, she's been on it. So she's got a phenomenal resume, and her reel, if you will, is just extraordinary. She's worked with everybody down there. So she's back home now. She is about to have, if she already hasn't, her first child. So she'll be at the event and with her brand new baby, I suspect. And we're just absolutely thrilled. And I met Amanda for the first time actually at this year's Marty's. She sat at my table and with her parents, and I was just astounded at how wonderful this young lady is. She's just really down to earth, and we're very proud of her. So, congratulations, Amanda. We're really fortunate to put you into Legends Row. You're very deserving. Now, the lady to her left, for the golf community, might know the name Gail Borthwick. She was born in Saskatchewan. Her dad was a professional golfer, and she had a golf club in her hand at age 3. And of course, he taught her a lot of the things he knew, I suppose. And she probably is one of the most decorated amateur golfers Canada's ever produced, here in Canada and in the United States. And so we're again thrilled to have Gail Borthwick join us, and she'll be there. And then finally, the name that a lot of people are tuning into these days in Hollywood is Simu Liu. Simu, what an interesting story. He was born in China. His parents, who were both engineers, came to Canada to further their education and get their degrees, and left him at home with the grandparents to be brought up in China. And he came to Mississauga when he was 5 years old and hooked up with his parents. And from what I've read, and if you haven't read his book, it's an absolutely fascinating read. The relationship was very difficult, obviously, when he first joined his parents here, and they gave him, the best schooling he could get. He graduated from the Ivy Business School, went to work for, I believe it was Deloitte as an accountant, and he only lasted 8 months. He was let go. It wasn't for him. He always wanted to be in films. He had a fascination with films. So that's where he got his start. Most of us probably remember him with the golly, what was the name of the show they did here in Canada? Oh, just at the tip of my tongue. Kim's Convenience. That's the show. I think it ran for about 7 or 8 years. He was one of the stars of that show. And more recently, he appeared as the Marvel comic book hero in Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, and then went on with Margot Robbie and Ryan Gosling in Barbie. And then his career has just blossomed in Hollywood. He's certainly doing well back there. So to get him,
one of the Kens?
He was one of the Kens. Yeah, he was one of the Kens on Barbie. So to get him to come to Mississauga wasn't an easy task, I can tell you. But we've got him. He's coming up, and he'll be there. And I hope a lot of people will want to come out and see him, as well as the others. It's a pretty eclectic group of people, I think.
It really is. It's it's very arts and athletics oriented. Is that by intention?
No, it isn't. It would just seem to be the focus. Media, entertainment and media, and athletics just seem to sort of fall in. I guess when people leave Mississauga, that's where they're headed. I suppose. I don't know. Just so it sort of happened that way. But yeah, it's quite a group, and they're all going to be there, and they're all very excited actually about it. This award is gaining recognition. There's no question about it.
Well, thank you very much for the introduction to this year's inductees as the 2024 Legends Row. We're going to take a break for some messages and come back in just 2 minutes with Ron Duquette, the founder of Legends Row and the chair of the organization, and maybe talk a little bit about some of the past inductees real quickly. Stay with us, everyone. Back in just 2 minutes. Welcome back, everyone, to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour on Saga 960. A real pleasure to reacquaint myself with Ron Duquette, a gentleman in Mississauga that I've always had a lot of respect for. He, someone who I sat on the Mississauga Arts Council board with and at numerous different other organizations. He's an incredible producer of events. He's a marketer. He's a creative force, and he's a really nice guy. And he's the chair of and the founder of Legends Row, an organization that puts on induction ceremonies on an annual basis about important people in the history of Mississauga, and then erects plaques to them at Celebration Square. And so, Ron, I really, you should be in Legends Row if you're not already, because you've been a great source of inspiration for, I think, many people in the city of Mississauga in regards to arts and culture and the history of Mississauga. And so, and for civic participation, because that's been one of the things that you've always been about as well. We're going to quickly ask you to make a couple of comments about some of the past inductees. We've got the 2022 Legends Row. Tell us a little bit about some of them, if you could.
Yeah, well, that year we inducted Patty Janetta Baker, or Patty Janetta, prior to her marriage, who is well known as a singer and producer of shows herself. Jack Pizarras, a man from the Portuguese community that's done so much for fundraising and work with children's needs in the city. And then, of course, the great builder, Peter Gilgan, who we all know as Madame E. Holmes. So they were the three that were inducted last year. So that was great. Here we have, that's a photograph of Lee Tovey, and those of us in Mississauga remember Jim Tovey, one of our counselors, who unfortunately passed away several years ago. But he really started a lot of wonderful work down in Port Credit. Pinball Clemens, Mr. Argonaut, and what a fabulous football player here was. This was a breakthrough from tradition uh, post-COVID, Brian, and for the first time we inducted an organization, and for the work that well, the folks at the hospital here in Mississauga did, Trillium Hospital, we inducted all 1,400 of their employees into Legends Row, and that was a really special occasion for
That must have
sure.
been excellent.
Yeah. Now who we got here? We got the great Ronnie Hawkins. Everybody knows Rompin' Ronnie Hawkins. This was what, 2018? So we have Fred Luke. His wife no, is that the right one? No, that's 2020. Let's see.
You've got Daryl
Oh yeah, we've
Sittler.
got. Oh yeah, right here we go. Yeah, that's the year we inducted Ellen McGregor representing her dad. And then Carolyn King, who a very strong woman in the Aboriginal community, Muhammad Faki, a restaurateur, well-known doctor, Dr. Reg Perkin, and Jill Heinerth, an amazing woman who is an underwater explorer, cave explorer, diver. She dove caves all throughout the world. Wonderful story there. And then Barbara Underhill, the wonderful skater back in the few years ago. Here we have, see now. Oh yes, Daryl Sittler, and the woman in the middle is the wife of Fred Luke, who was a very popular rowing coach and also a photographer of the Mississauga News. And then the other woman is uh, let's see now.
Susan Harris, a gymnastics builder.
Susan. Yeah, Susan. Susan was a huge in the oh
Gymnastics.
yeah, gymnastics. That I'm sorry. Thank you for throwing the word out. She was really the woman who started gymnastics in Mississauga, got things rolling. What do we got here? We've got Ruth Hussey. Robert Sawyer is a science fiction writer.
He's really quite amazing. I nominated him for a Marty as well. He was a Streetsville, I believe, is he not?
That's right. Yeah, 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 yeah. George Strombolopoulos. Everybody knows George Strombo, as he's called. Gary Clipperton. Now, Gary was the one who started the singing group in Streetsville. That's who you might be thinking of. And Wilson McTavish, another gentleman who has done an awful lot for. Unfortunately, both Wilson and we've lost a couple of them, unfortunately. This was the year that we inducted, let's see, Paul Coffey, Ori Fidani, a wonderful builder in our city. Carlos represented him, Dr. Colin Saldana, and Dave Toyson, a gentleman who's done great work in communities throughout the world that really need help. This was the year that we inducted Chuck Ely. There's Chuck somewhere in there. There's Chuck. Billy Talent, the rock band, punk rock band, who have done great things, not so much in Canada, but in Europe. Bob Gillespie and Fran Ryder, who is a hockey executive, largely responsible for bringing women's hockey to the level that it is today.
And Ron Lennox was inducted that year.
And Ron Lennox, I'm sorry, Ron Lennox, his wife is there representing him. Ron Lennox was just Mr. Mississauga. We all just fell in love with this gentleman. He worked tirelessly for this community. Okay, where have we got here? Okay, there's Johnny Bauer. We actually inducted Johnny Bauer in 2013, but he couldn't make it that year, so we gave him his award in 2014. Harold Shipp, that's his daughter, was inducted, a big builder. Don Cherry, that's his daughter. Don Cherry was inducted that year. What have we got here? Let's see. Oh yeah, Elliot Kerr. Elliot, again, big in hockey, owns the Steelheads, the hockey club here. And then Lori Pallett, wonderful lady who took the reins of the Mississauga Arts Council from the early days and brought it forward. I think she was with the council for a good dozen years or so. 2013 was our first induction ceremony, and it was a big one for us. We had it out on the square, and that year we inducted Bruce McLaughlin, who was the builder I talked about earlier, who started the downtown core in Mississauga. Johnny Bauer was inducted. Chuck Jackson, uh, who started the Southside Shuffle Blues Festival, which is now, I think, in its 26th or 27th year in Port Credit. The wonderful pianist Oscar Peterson, who lived in our city for many, many years. Silken Lauman, the rower, we all know her story. Triumph, Gil Moore and the rock group Triumph, all started here in Mississauga. Lata Pata, South Asian dancer. Paul Henderson, we all remember that goal in Russia that won the series for us in Russia. Dr. Joseph Wong, he was the gentleman who started an organization called, oh gosh, what was the guy? Anyway, he and a group of doctors would go over to China and correct cleft palates for children born with that disease. And then finally, Tommy Hunter, the great Tommy Hunter. So that was a pretty
I didn't know
eclectic.
Tommy Hunter was from Mississauga.
Well, he wasn't he lived here for many, many years. Yeah, he lived down in Lorne Park for many, many years. Yeah, that's why we brought him into the fold. So that was a big year. It was a good one.
That's interesting that you have Tommy Hunter and his country and Western music, and at the same time Oscar Peterson and his piano.
Jazz and then rock
and then Triumph.
Yeah, then Triumph. So you got the full mix there.
You really
I
did.
guess all we needed was a hip hop group.
So you've really sort of covered business and the arts and athletics. Is there an area of society you don't cover?
No, I think we try to cover it. One of the things we always try to encourage is that the people of Mississauga induct some, send in your ideas. Who do you think you'd like to see in Legends Row? And we ask people to send in their nominees, and we try to cover all the bases. It really doesn't matter. So there's a category that will fit pretty well everyone. Yeah, we try not to miss anyone.
It's a great event and a great tribute that you've arranged, Ron. Thank you very much. We're going to take a final break for some messages, and I'm going to come back and I'm going to ask Ron as sort of a closing question, why he's involved in community. This is all about building community, and so many people don't care about community anymore. And why is it important to him? So stay with us, everyone. Back, and I'm going to sort of elevate to a philosophical question and put Mr. Ron Duquette, the founder of Legends Row, on the spot. Stay with us, everyone. Back in 2. Welcome back, everyone, to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour on Saga 960. We've just been chatting for the last 45 minutes with Ron Duquette, who is the founder of and the chair of an organization called Legends Row Mississauga. They've got their induction ceremony coming up in August, and they're going to be inducting people that are considered legends to Ron and his organization, and are deserving of a plaque on Celebration Square at Mississauga's City Hall, or just in front of it. Ron, you've been incredibly involved in community. You've been very involved in the Mississauga Arts Council. You obviously founded this Legends Row organization. You started out, as you said, being director of communications for Square One and for Bruce McLaughlin. You've been one of those people that has spent so much time and effort being involved in community organizations and community stuff. Why?
Boy, that's a tough question. I think it goes back to when I first came to Mississauga and was working for Bruce McLaughlin. One of the first people I met was a young cub reporter for the Mississauga News. His name was Ron Lennox. And he was just a cub reporter at the time doing sports, I think. And we became very close friends. And Ron was very much involved in the community in a whole variety of ways. And he kept saying to me, Ron, you got to do this. You got to do that. You got to help me with this. And so it just happened, without any question, being friends. And it mushroomed from there. I got myself a foothold in this community, started my family here, bought my first home here, and I felt I was a part of the community. And at the time I had a small advertising agency, and it helps when you're building your business to be a part of that community as well. There's no question. And so it just kind of evolved, and I've enjoyed 50 years of being a part of it. And I retired 10 years ago, and I guess after retirement, I took on even a lot more than I typically would have been involved in because I have the time. So I sit on 5 boards now. You mentioned the Arts Council. I'm the president. You were the president of the Arts Council at one point. I took that role on. And Legends Row, I sit on the board of the Southside Shuffle Blues Festival. I've been with that organization for a dozen years or so, and a couple of other boards. And I don't know. I just feel I have to be a part of it, and I enjoy it. And I've generated a lot of friendships over the years of people who I continue to call my friends because that's how we met, is volunteering and doing things in the community. And it went on from there. And I'll continue until my time is up.
When you were involved in business, did it help you in your business?
I would say so. You sit on a board of this or a board of that, and somebody is looking for some marketing information or some communications material. I don't think it generated a lot of the business that I was doing at the time. In fact, when I started the company in Mississauga, most of the business I was doing was outside the city. It was, in Toronto, and I eventually moved my company to Toronto because we were still considered that bedroom community, and to attract a lot of business from Toronto was very difficult. So we moved into Toronto, and that's really how the business built. But it certainly helps. There's no question about it. I think
Richard Florida, the professor at Rotman School of Business at U of T and a sort of a renowned urbanist, has written a book called "Who's Your City?" And in it he argues that who you marry and what city you're going to locate in are two of the most important decisions that you make in life. And his comment about the city is that it's because that's where you get your connections, your references, your recommendations, the resources for new jobs, for more money for your business, ideas that you're going to create something out of, et cetera. And he says that social capital that you create within a municipal, a city, economic environment is so critical to success in life. What do you think of that argument?
I would totally agree with that. I really do. Again, from the early days starting my business, that was in fact the case. I would sit on a board, and somebody sitting around the table would say, "Oh, Ron, we our company needs this." A lot of the work we used to do was in the audiovisual production area, and doing conferences for clients and that sort of thing. And that's how the business was built. Somebody needed some work done for a conference in the United States somewhere, and or overseas, and that's how it built. So I totally agree with that philosophy. Absolutely.
Ron, if people want to come to the induction ceremony, can they? How do they get tickets? What's the process?
Well, first of all, it's a free event, so we're very happy to announce that. And all they have to do is go on the Living Arts Center website, and they'll scroll down, and you'll see our event, and just go into that site, and you could be able to select your seats, and we'd love to see everybody there. There's 1,300 seats in that theater. We like to see someone in every one of them.
Ron Duquette, founder of and chair of Legends Row. Thanks so much for joining us tonight and sharing with us the inductees for this year's Legends Row, and then little comments about past inductees. Real pleasure chatting with you again, Ron.
I enjoyed it very much. Thank you, Brian.
That's our show for tonight, everybody. Thank you for joining. I remind you, I'm on every Monday through Friday at 6 o'clock on 960 AM. You can stream me online at www.saga960am.ca. All my podcasts and videos are also repeated on social media and on YouTube and on podcast services just as soon as the radio show goes to air. Thanks for joining us. Have a great weekend, everybody. Good night.